and thank you for joining us at the ever-improving No Soundbites Allowed podcast. My name is Michael Vasquez. We thank you for joining us in this adventure of describing the politics that go on in our nation on a personal and local level as often as possible, giving you, the audience, more than just 30 seconds to understand what's going on in our nation. We look forward to joining you as we go. Just sit back, enjoy the ride. Please remember, if you like the episodes, like it, share it, let other people know, and if you can, please donate, even if it's $2, even if it's $5, because it all makes a difference. We thank you, and here we go. Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining me. That's right, this is Michael Voss, the Dragon of the Southern Tier, back with you at the No Sound Bites Allowed podcast, and I'm always happy to be here with you because you make the difference. You are the reason why I do this, and I thank you, each and every one of you, for being able to give me this opportunity. And I wanted to take a moment today because we're going to be talking about a few different things. And I want to go over from the top of the week going forward. One of the few things I want to talk about, Alex Jones and the question of free speech that's in the internet right now and the lack of it in the internet at this moment. I want to talk a little bit about the Antifa attack against Candace Owens and how that reflects and how that has to do with also the free speech that we have at this time in this nation. I want to talk a little bit about, on a local race, the Broome County Sheriff race, Matt Ryan, who's running, in his appearance on WNBF, the local news station in the Southern Tier in the Binghamton region and in Broome County. And I want to talk a little bit about him, as well as talking about WNBF, and they're also doing some things with the lack of freedom of speech, and edited speech there, and even continuing that theme going further, I want to talk a little bit about Ocasio-Cortez and her recent incident, you may have heard about in the last day or so, against Ben Shapiro and what Ben Shapiro has offered. And I do have an excerpt from Ben Shapiro's show, which I'll be playing. And I'll go into that and how that has so many similarities with a conversation I've been trying to have with Anthony Brindisi, the assemblyman of the 119th district, who's now looking to become a congressman. He's running in the New York 22nd race. And I want to discuss that. But the overall theme throughout all of this is free speech, our First Amendment. And it's very, very important. And that's a discussion that needs to be had because we're seeing it on so many levels throughout the nation, how this is affecting us individually and as a total in the nation. It's not just a local issue, but it has local aspects. It has national aspects. It's all over the place. So we're going to talk a little bit about all of that because I think it's very important. I think it's critical that we have a conversation about this. Now, I also want to mention, before I get started with that, just as a side note, we're going to have another speaker coming on to the program in about a week or so, and that will be from the New York State Women Incorporated, and that'll be a very interesting conversation with the head there, Heather Micah, and I'm looking forward to speaking with her. She's a local representative of the organization. And in addition to that, I should also mention that on August 20th, I will be appearing at the Vestal Public Library on behalf of the AFRTC, the Americans for Restoring the Constitution. They've invited me to speak. I'll be speaking from 7 o'clock until 9 p.m. I've invited all of the press in the media, and I invite anyone. I'll be speaking on the issue of the red flag legislation, and I believe that this will be one of the most comprehensive conversations about this issue available to the public that I have been able to find. There have been a couple of articles here and there, a couple of news stories here and there. There's been a lot of legislation that's been going on across the nation and is proposed to be happening in Congress as well as in New York State, but nobody seems to really know what this is. And I've talked to a lot of news stations throughout central New York. I've talked to a lot of politicians throughout central New York. I've spoken to people in Washington, D.C., not a congresswoman, but other individuals in Washington, D.C. And I can tell you, no one really knows what's going on with this issue. And it is so imperative to be able to protect ourselves. We need to know what this is. Whether you agree with me or not, I invite you to come down on August 20th to hear me make the presentation and let people know what are red flag laws and what do they do? What is the consequence of these laws? I've been doing a lot of research on that. I'm still working on the research on that. It's been several weeks now, and I hope to have the most comprehensive discussion on this issue that you will find pretty much in America, I truly believe. But that being said, let me get back to what are we talking about here? And today, right now, this week, we have been seeing the First Amendment as one of the forefronts of issues that are going on in America. Huge, huge issue in America. We're listening to people tell us how we can think, what we should think, why we should think it. And one of the greatest examples of that is looking at Facebook. Facebook and Twitter, you're looking at what happened with Alex Jones. Now, for those who are not familiar with him, Alex Jones is a far-right individual. I mean, he is extreme. And he is somewhat of a conspiracy theorist. And he runs an organization called InfoWars. Now, a lot of people don't agree with Alex Jones on most of the issues that he covers. Many people find him to be a fringe individual, kind of an equivalent of Rosie O'Donnell for the left. He's very extreme, not mainstream at all, has ideas that very few other people tend to have, but has a large voice and has been speaking very loudly about a lot of issues. That's Alex Jones, roughly in a nutshell. But the thing that's very important about this is whether you like Alex Jones or not, whether you agree with Alex Jones or not, and I don't on most issues. But the thing isn't that. It doesn't matter whether I agree with him or not. What matters is the fact that he has been essentially crippled on getting his voice out and speaking out his mind. He has been able to, he was on Facebook, he was on Twitter, he was on several mediums, and they all kind of got together on YouTube, and he's been banned from YouTube. He's been banned from Facebook, and there's no real answer on why, other than the fact that he is a far-right conservative Republican. They took away his voice. Now, they'll tell you a lot of reasons like, oh, well, he's not always accurate. Well, he is accurate. He just has conclusions you may not like. He may have some theories that are absolutely wrong. But let's look on Facebook right now. You can spend just a couple of seconds and you'll find lots of people who are talking about UFOs. You'll find lots of people who are talking about, every conspiracy you can think of. You can hear people talk about aliens and the future of the world, people debating about movies. It doesn't matter if you like it or not. There are people out there who hate movies like Reservoir Dogs. I like it. I think it's a great movie. I guarantee you, if I said I love Reservoir Dogs on Facebook, you're going to get people who come back and go, absolutely not, absolutely horrendous. I know that I didn't like the Justice League movie. I can tell you, I've had conversations with people who told me I'm absolutely wrong. It was a great movie. Okay, I hate and despise the new Star Wars series, episodes 7 and 8, and I'm not going to see episode 9. I will not pay money to watch Star Wars made by Disney. Will not do it, especially with Kathleen Kennedy in charge. I think it is an abhorrent for what is Star Wars and the themes and the ideas of Star Wars. And I guarantee you, there is a huge section of the internet that tells you you're absolutely wrong about that. So to say that Alex Jones is talking about things that are extreme or fringe or far out there, so what? There are lots of people who do that. When people say, oh, well, he's not exactly the most factual person on some of the things that he says, some of the conclusions that he makes, I can point to a large number. I mean, look at Antifa, look at Citizen Action, look at most of the far left. There's lots of people. Listen to Rosie O'Donnell. Rosie O'Donnell's talking about how people are being paid to go to see Donald Trump, where there is no evidence of that whatsoever. None whatsoever. But we're not hearing anyone say, oh, well, we have to, because Rosie O'Donnell's making these allegations that have no basis in fact and cannot be proven, well, then we got to kick her off of YouTube. We got to kick her off of Facebook. You're not seeing that. And what that is, at its core, is removing someone's freedom of speech from them being able to communicate. And that's one of the most important things. Our freedom of speech is not to protect what we think is right. It is there to protect what we don't think is right, to let someone else's idea get out there, to hear the other side. And that's what we're protecting. And people hate that. And I understand why. I don't like hearing some of these things that I hear from the left, from Antifa, from Black Lives Matters, from Citizen Action. And I'm sure they hate hearing from me just as much. But guess what? We both have a right to be out there, to have our voices spoken, to let other people hear it. And maybe they agree with us or maybe they don't, and they can comment on that. That's what it's supposed to be about. That's what freedom of speech is. And at the core, that is what Facebook and YouTube are there to do. Not to tell us what's right, not to tell us what's the correct thing to speak about or how they want us to speak about it, but to give us a platform to speak to each other. That's what they're there for. That's their mission statements. And by the way, Alex Jones did not violate the terms of service for Facebook or YouTube, and nor did he violate the terms of service for Twitter, which he's still on. So you have to wonder, why did they take him off then? Because someone didn't like it. Because the people in charge of Facebook have been out there and they are censoring people. I can tell you that I know of at least 3 organizations and about a dozen people who have been censored by Facebook. Either they've been removed or they've been temporarily denied the ability to speak on Facebook. They have mysterious technical issues that only appear on their sites and when they're making posts or when they're doing Facebook Live, that suddenly all these glitches and these technical issues take place only for them. And I can tell you that we can't seem to find it. Remember when Zuckerberg was over at Congress, he was speaking to the Senate, he was speaking to Senator Ted Cruz, and he was asked, are you aware of any of these things happening to non-conservatives, non-Republicans? Are there any liberals or anyone on the left that's had these kinds of denials of freedom of speech or any kind of complications? And the answer is no. That was Zuckerberg. Go back to C-SPAN and check it out. That's his answer. So you have to wonder about this. This makes me very, very upset because we are seeing liberals, the left, government advocate for an organization to shut down voices. So we're not seeing people on the left be shut out. We're not seeing people on the left being denied the ability to get onto Facebook, onto YouTube, or onto Twitter. They're not being shut out. No, it's just on the right. When you do that, that's bias. That's a denial of freedom because it's not based on rules, but it's based on someone's interpretation. And I understand this is their business. They can do whatever they want. It's a private business. I give you that. But if you've created a business where you say the goal of that business is to be able to allow people to communicate with each other and to spread ideas and share things that you think is important with other individuals, and that's your basis, then you can't go and say, well, only these ideas. You can only send out these pictures. Okay, what? You don't want us to be able to share the Constitution, which Facebook has done. Denied people the ability to share the Constitution. I'm sorry, that's censorship. When you're going out there, when you won't allow us to put out pictures, well, there's a problem. And I'm not talking about pornographic pictures or pictures of explicit violence or gore. We're talking about just regular pictures of flags, of people being patriotic, sharing their views. Then we have a problem here. That's a big deal. Because at some point, you become the victim of that. Because at some point, someone's going to turn around and say to you, well, today is not your day because we're going to shut you down next. You don't like Alex Jones. You don't like someone on the right. Fantastic. Well, guess what? Someone doesn't like someone on the left. And all of a sudden, the LGBTQ are removed from Facebook and they can't speak. Or maybe it's someone in a religion like Muslims or Christians or Jews, and they're no longer allowed to be able to speak because someone didn't like it. Not because they're right or wrong. That's not the question. Has nothing to do with that. I don't care if Alex Jones is wrong about every single thing he's ever said and ever will say. Doesn't matter. It's because he is voicing his thoughts and his opinion. And that is critical. That is critical. Because I'm listening to this and I'm seeing this. It's not just Facebook. It's not just the internet. Because I've also seen this on WMBF, a local talk news station, the only talk news station in the Southern Tier Central New York area. And we're listening to one of its most popular programs, Binghamton Now, which is doing some of the same things in terms of free speech. And I'm going to get into that. We're going to take a break and then we're going to come right back and I'll talk a little bit more about that. But that's the theme today. We're talking about free speech. And I want you to think about it as you listen to the musical break with Matt Cornwell. Just think about that. They're taking away someone's voice for the only reason is they don't like it. And because they don't like it, why are you protected? Because at some point, they won't like what you have to say either. And if you can't protect one person, how do you protect yourself? What's to protect you? Because if the basis is someone's likes, their feeling at that moment, you can't guarantee you're going to be protected. And that's a very important thing. But we're going to take a quick break and then we'll come right back and I'll go into what I mean about with WNBF and what's been going on there. So I'll be right back.
I ain't had to waste. I don't even remember how you taste on my lips. Used to be something I needed. Now I see I had a reason. I was bummed out, stressed out, yeah. Think you made me feel the best I had. For a minute I thought I needed you. Now I'm seeing through all of the reasons that I made up in my head. I'm breaking the habit. I'm breaking the habit. I'm breaking the habits that I had, 'cause look where it's got me. Searching for myself, didn't know I lost me. I ain't no saint. Let the devil have a way. I regret it every day. I was bummed out, stressed out, yeah. Think you made me feel the best I had. For a minute I thought I needed you. Now I'm seeing through all of the reasons that I made up in my head. I'm breaking the habit. I'm breaking the habit. I'm breaking the I'm breaking the habit. I'm breaking the habit. I'm breaking the I'm breaking the habit. I'm breaking the
So thank you for coming back to the No Soundbites Allowed podcast, your favorite podcast on the internet, with your host, Michael Voss, the Dragon of the Southern Tier. Now, as we had left off in the last segment, I was talking a little bit about how the lack of freedom of speech, not because of any kind of rules, regulations, any laws, but in fact because of the feelings of individuals, how that's a negative. Because one day those feelings will affect everyone. One day someone is not going to feel like whatever side anyone else is on is wrong, and then silence them and stop them from speaking. And that's a terrible thing. And we see something like that happening right now on WNBF, which is a local news talk radio program in the southern tier of New York, based in Broome County. It's the only news talk radio program in the area. It has no competition. And one of the most popular programs is called Binghamton Now. And the host on there, since about March of 2018, has become progressively more anti-Trump, anti-the right. Since March, pretty much every single day, he has a negative comment about the president, whether it's a tweet, policy, where the president has gone. He's constantly attacking him throughout his show, not during his actual interviews with guests on there, but directly in between those conversations, as he's taking calls or speaking out to the general public. He's constantly in an attack mode on the right, and in particular on the president especially. And so that's a little troubling. Now, it would be fine if this was a talk program where we knew that the host is a left-leaning host, but that's not what we hear with Bob Joseph. He states that he is impartial, that he is a neutral value, and yet his neutrality is left-leaning, and he is very actively promoting the left. And I'll give you an example. And this is troubling because imagine the consequences of this. He recently had this week Matt Ryan, who's running for the Broome County Sheriff. I've spoken about him a little bit before. I do know Matt Ryan. And Matt Ryan came onto the program, and he decided that he was going to use the time that he was able to have, because he was a candidate, to share with the listening audience allegations that were unfounded. He was just making unfounded claims against another politician, not even his opponent, who's Dave Harder, the sheriff of Broome County currently. He didn't even bother to attack his opponent. No, he was attacking the state senator, Fred Akshar, who's not in a race against Matt Ryan. And he just decided to put out some allegations that have no proof. There is no crime, there is no charge, there is nothing out there. He just decided that he wanted to attack him just because he doesn't like him and he doesn't feel like he agrees with our state senator. Now, it's one thing to say, well, I don't agree with the policies of that individual or what they're standing for. I think that person's wrong. That's fine. But when you say that this person has committed a crime and that they should be convicted and removed and stripped of their office, well, you need a little bit more than that. And when you're basing your vote and the reason why people should vote for you on the ability of you attacking someone else, you better have some proof behind that. You better have more than that's the way I feel. And yet that's what Matt Ryan did. Matt Ryan went onto the program making these unfounded allegations. And here's the problem when you have someone who's basing their the freedom of speech for others based on feelings. Rather than stating on air that Matt Ryan shouldn't make unfounded allegations against someone who isn't even there to defend themselves, no, he didn't do that. He didn't stick up for him. He didn't say, where's your proof on this? How can you make these allegations? No, he allowed him to just roll for about 5 minutes, making allegation after allegation without any proof. And that's kind of scary. That's terrifying, that he's going to allow disinformation that can affect an election without any question. And then that, of course, caused me to get onto Twitter, because Bob Joseph, the Binghamton Now program, is on Twitter, and they take questions and also comments sometimes on the program from people who are tweeting in as the show is live. And I tweeted in and said, wait a minute, that Mr. Ryan is making unfounded allegations, that there are no charges, there are no crimes that have been committed. There is no proof to anything that he is saying, and he should apologize for that. And you know what? To the credit of Bob Joseph, he did mention that eventually, that I made that tweet. And then Matt Ryan doubled down. He didn't just say, no, he's right. He said he felt he was right. And in fact, he got angry, extremely angry, and went on to a rant, screaming about how dare someone question his opinion because he had the right opinion. And the rest of us were just part of some kind of conspiracy to protect other individuals. All of this without any proof. No conspiracy can be proven. There's no evidence of anyone doing anything because of fear of government forces or because we're trying to have a conspiracy or we're trying to deny the public of the truth. He even accused, at that moment, Bob Joseph, the host of the program himself, for denying and lying to the public and not telling them the truth or letting them know about information. Again, these are all unfounded, and he never proved it. He never once said, here is the proof of a crime that actually occurred. Here's the crime, and here's the proof, because it doesn't exist. I know the issues he was speaking about. There is no proof. It doesn't exist. It's his feeling. He doesn't like the state senator who is on the right, which is, he doesn't have to like him. But at the same time, to be able to make unfounded statements, that's wrong. And so that's very troubling, very, very troubling. And I had some great concern about that. And I'm listening to this, and the thing that I come back to today is I'm listening to WMBF, and I'm listening to the host, Bob Joseph. He's if I had made that tweet and said, hey, let's challenge this because he's saying something that's absolutely wrong, he was going to allow it because he felt like it was good. Whether he thought it was good radio or whether he personally believed in all the things that were being said by Matt Ryan, it doesn't matter. He's making unfounded statements to voters. And he was about to allow that to stand until I had made a tweet saying, no, you can't do that, that's wrong, that's not the truth, and people deserve the truth. Well, even later this week, today, on his radio program, someone called in and was talking about an issue that I've brought up on the show before, which is the Utica email scandal, which affects Anthony Brindisi, who's running for the New York 22nd District for the Democratic Party. And Mr. Brindisi has been involved in a 8-month-long ongoing scandal, email gate, or some people call it the Utica Hospital scandal, which has been going on for more than a year, but actually the biggest focus has been since the beginning of this year in January. And someone brought that up and said, hey, this is an issue. We maybe want to talk about this, that we should probably have some conversation about this because it's an important thing for voters to understand the character of the people who are involved in this race. And Bob Joseph goes, oh, I don't really think that's important. Really? We're listening to, this is, again, a further extension of this selectivity in freedom of speech. Someone is talking about saying, hey, here, your program is here to allow people to know about the issues that are going on, to give them information so they can be better informed voters. And here is the host going, I don't think that's really important. The character of the person who's running, not really important. The allegations in New York State, where there is massive corruption at every level of government, that's been proven. We have the court cases going on, Buffalo Billions and so on. We know this. We've seen the investigations against our Governor Cuomo ongoing. We know that. But yet we have a host who's going, well, I'm okay with not talking about a scandal about the character of one of the politicians because no one else in the news has talked about it yet because, well, it's not that important to him. It's not that important to him. The fact that he doesn't think that Anthony Brindisi, to talk about Anthony Brindisi and talk about his character and a scandal that he is involved with, that is a massive issue in the area of Utica, and the New York 22nd District includes Binghamton and Utica. The character of that candidate becoming potentially a congressman is not important to someone. It's very important to me. I think it's very important to most people. That's like saying that all of the corruption surrounding Governor Cuomo is unimportant. It doesn't matter if our politicians break the law. It doesn't matter if they're involved in scandals. Really? Because I can tell you, Chris Collins would disagree with you on that right now. That's where it's important that things that actually matter are being dissuaded. If you believe that the government shouldn't be able to enact eminent domain unless it's absolutely important, then you want to know what's going on in Utica right now if you happen to be in the New York 22nd District. Except the host, the news reporting host of the program, doesn't want you to know about it. He doesn't think it's important enough for you to know. How can he tell you what's important for you to vote on? He doesn't believe it's important to know what the character of Anthony Brindisi is, even though there has been a FOIA document that he has read and he has received that tells him that Anthony Brindisi, in his own words, has made threats against his constituents. But that's not important to Bob Joseph or WMBF. But does that mean it's not important to any of the other voters out there? Shouldn't they have the right to choose that? And if they don't have access, because you don't get a whole lot of news from Utica. I do, because I'm a news junkie. But just because I do and other people don't, doesn't mean that they shouldn't know about it or they shouldn't be informed of it for a candidate who's in a race. It's not the same thing as saying, hey, Utica is expanding its gambling. Well, that doesn't affect Binghamton. I understand why you may not want to talk about it. Or that the city council in Utica is going through a battle right now about term limits. Well, that doesn't affect Binghamton. You're right. Who cares? No one needs to know about that. I do, because I follow it. But no one else down in the southern tier knows about it. But you know what? When a candidate is running for a race that's going to affect everyone in Binghamton and the United States government, because he's running for Congress, then yes, an issue that's been going on for 8 months and continuing is a relevant factor and should be told. But not when someone's deciding to edit what is free speech. And he was there actively talking down. As he was talking today is August 10th, as he was talking about this issue with the gentleman, he kept mentioning, well, there is another person I know who's concerned about that. Me. Mr. Joseph has known me for years. He knows I spoke about this adamantly and that we were having a discussion about it. He knows I've written about it and I've spoken about it, but he didn't even want to mention my name. I don't know why. He knows who I am. I have no reason. He's mentioned my name many other times when he's referring to me, but suddenly he doesn't want to refer to me because he doesn't want to refer to the issue because he doesn't like it. Well, that's freedom of speech being edited. Not denied, edited. Same idea. When someone's editing your free speech, they're denying you free speech. And when they're denying you information, which is what free speech does. It allows us to communicate, then that's dangerous. Because that's how you get in a politician in office who's corrupt or is, incapable of the things that they've promised and unwilling to do some of the things that they've promised. That's scary. And that is troubling. And that creates a problem for everyone. That's why we have the freedom of speech. And that's why I'm so upset with Bob Joseph and WMBF right now. Not just because it was about me, but more importantly, they're denying the public information. And that's a very bad thing. That they're taking a bias, which if they want to take that bias, that's fine. Just say up front that this is the bias. I am a Republican conservative, and I do all of my commentary from that viewpoint. And I do commentary. I provide facts, and I give you my input and my thoughts. If you don't like it, that's fine. You can tell me that. You can also not listen to the program. I want you to listen to the program, but you may not want to. And that's okay. That is a choice. That is freedom. I have a lot of information to provide. You may not agree with all the information in terms of you may not like it. You may not like the conclusion I come to off of the information that's available. But that doesn't mean you should be denied the ability to hear the information. Whether or not you wish to accept it or whether or not you agree with it is up to you. But that doesn't mean you're denied that. And that's a very important difference there. Something that we're seeing on Facebook, we're seeing that on YouTube, we're seeing that on public talk radio. And it's being done in a very simple and very insidious way where no one's saying, oh, you're banned from this, but rather, I don't want to cover it. I don't think it's important enough to talk about. That's not your choice. That shouldn't be the choice of news. That shouldn't be the choice of Facebook or YouTube to say that they don't like it, so no one else should hear it. I'm sorry, that's not what they're there for. That is not their goal. And we see this coming together in a lot of different ways. And in fact, I'm going to talk about how this comes together with Antifa attacking Candace Owens, a black woman, and how that also connects to Ocasio-Cortez and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and her conversation with Ben Shapiro, as well as Mr. Brindisi and myself and our ongoing conversation for over a year. So I'll explain all that when we get right back from this quick break, and I hope you enjoy it.
Signals coming from a canyon. I've been searching for my companion for so long. Look out, here comes the dawn. Look to my left, look to my right, searching for something, but something ain't right. This glass ain't full, it's fucking empty. Let's play cowboys and Indians. I'll be the cowboy, you be the Indian. I'll shoot my rabbit, shoot your hair to blow. Struck once, twice, three times a charm. Beautiful woman with a deadly arm. If love weren't a game, I'd be dead forever. Let's play cowboys and Indians. Let's play cowboys and Indians. Let's play all night long. signals coming from a canyon. I've been searching for my companion for so long. Look out, here comes the dawn. Let's play cowboys and Indians. I'll be the cowboy, you be the Indian. Tie each other up while we tie one. Oh, oh.
Hey everyone, and thank you for joining me back at the No Soundbites Allowed podcast. This is your host, Michael Voss. I hope you enjoyed that musical presentation by Adam Ate the Apple. Great guys. I love that band. Now, we've been talking about a very serious issue, a very serious subject, which is we're talking about the freedom of speech, the denial of freedom of speech, both being forced on individuals like it was with Alex Jones because Facebook didn't like what he was saying, because YouTube didn't like what he had to say, which is a worst reason ever for anyone to be denied the freedom of their speech. And we see that with what was happening at WMBF, that, because the host liked what someone was saying, they allowed them to make unfounded allegations that could affect voters and how people are going to vote, and also denied people information at the same time about an event that could affect another election, news and actual fact that could affect voters, and deny them the opportunity to know more about those facts for the reason because he didn't like it, apparently. So that's really intense. And I think that's a big problem, that we're seeing this in the media, we're seeing this in the internet, that people are not, just because they have a feeling about something, they're not getting that information, or they're blocking that information, or denying others to find out about that information. And that is terrifying, especially in an age where we have access to more information than ever before, and people should be able to actively find that information and do what they wish with it. You know what? Fact check Alex Jones. Fact check me. Fact check WMBF and Matt Ryan. Don't just take everything at word just because it's on the internet, or because it's on TV, or because it's on the radio or a news station. That doesn't mean it's right. And it doesn't mean that it's the complete story. I've been talking about this for weeks, about how we've seen how many times where we've had news events where there is hours and hours of information being provided, and it's been shrunk down to 28 seconds. You can't get any facts in 28 seconds on something that took 2 or 3 or 4 hours to take place. You just aren't getting the right answer. That's someone editing the freedom of speech, the ability to communicate ideas. Whether or not everyone likes those ideas is entirely separate of the fact that the ideas shouldn't be edited. That's the whole purpose of this program and why it's so long, because we deserve to be able to have a conversation. Not that you have to agree with me, not that you have to like what I have to say, but you have the opportunity to hear it and then form your own thoughts. And that's why I include the sources and links for everyone to follow up for yourself and make your own conclusion. And you're more than welcome to always comment and to contact me about this on what you think about it, because that's the only way we have this move forward. We have to have that conversation. So I was going to play, and I still may do this in another podcast, a conversation that Ben Shapiro was having about his ongoing conversation with Ocasio-Cortez. Actually, before I even get to that, I wanted to, as I mentioned, I'd be talking about Antifa. That earlier this week, and going along with the same theme, we see this. So we've seen this as part of the internet. We're seeing this as part of news radio. We're also seeing this in real life. Responding to Maxine Waters' commandment for the far left to go out and to disrupt and attack individuals in their private lives while they're just living, going out shopping. They're going out to, in this case, having breakfast in a restaurant. And Antifa came in and decided to attack Candace Owens, who happens to be a black woman. She's a black conservative, and she obviously doesn't agree with a lot that Antifa agrees with and Black Lives Matters agrees with. And so they came into the restaurant to scream their shame and their taunts and their chants and disrupt everyone in the business, disrupt everyone who's having breakfast, just so that they could yell at these individuals to verbally assault them. And there's actual video of this and you can see it. It's probably on Facebook by now, but it was on Twitter under Candace Owens. She put out live video of how that was happening, how these individuals and a crowd of these individuals surrounded Candace Owens and Charles Kirk, and they're taunting them. They're verbally assaulting them, literally inches away from them, putting speakerphones, loudspeakers, into their ears to shout at them. Now, this is insane. And this is something that you couldn't dare do to someone on the left. Let someone surround Ocasio-Cortez and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and put a loudspeaker in her face and shout into it. And I guarantee you the left would lose their mind. If there were a group of people from the right surrounding Ocasio-Cortez and Bernie Sanders and screaming at them, you'd see the left going nuts, saying that they need to get police protecting them, and how dare you try and shout them down and not allow them to speak and to oppress them in this manner. Then why is it right when it's happening from the left against the right? It isn't. It isn't. And you should hear this and hear about this on your news programs. You should hear about this. And I saw a lot of news that barely covered this story and barely covered this issue of First Amendment, of denying people their First Amendment rights and just their human rights in general by attacking them while they're having breakfast, and how this reflects back on what Maxine Waters has been saying and what we're seeing from the left. Both, again, denying people the freedom of information, of conversation, to have disagreements. We should have that. That it's not about everyone has to agree with me and that's it. Whether you're from the left or the right, it's never that way. It should always be a conversation and a discussion. And part of that is Ben Shapiro asking Ocasio-Cortez, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, to come onto his program and actually have a conversation with him. Whether she wanted to do it as a debate or whether she wanted to do it as a conversation, and to have that. And for that, to entice her into doing that, to sweeten the deal, so to speak, he was willing to give her $10,000 towards her campaign or to a charity. And she said no. And well, actually, she didn't say no. She didn't say anything. She avoided him and then went on to Twitter to talk to other individuals and say, how dare he do this? Well, might as well be a cat call. It's so terrible for you to do this. How dare you assault me this way? And that's insane. Okay. Because it's one thing to say, I'm not going to have this conversation. It's an entirely different thing to say what not having a conversation with you is the same thing as denying you the ability to assault me. That to have a conversation about politics with someone who speaks about politics to give you more attention and to spread your ideas amongst other people, to say that that's an assault is insane. Okay, and that's just deflecting. You're denying someone the ability to have a conversation with you. Okay, you don't want to give them that right for whatever reason. That doesn't give you the right to make an unfounded allegation that has no basis in truth. Notice how these things are coming up. Unfounded, unbiased, based on all feelings. I understand Ocasio-Cortez doesn't feel like she likes Ben Shapiro. Fantastic. She doesn't have to. She doesn't like Ben Shapiro's politics. That's fine. She doesn't have to. That doesn't mean she can make an unfounded allegation against him. It doesn't in the same way that Matt Ryan, because he doesn't like State Senator Fred Akshar, doesn't get to make an unfounded allegation against him. And anyone who's listening to that, like Facebook, like Twitter, like WMBF, shouldn't allow that to happen. You don't get to just make up anything you want because you don't like the person that you're talking about. You don't. You have to have some kind of proof, some basis, some truth to this. And that's very, very upsetting indeed. And at the same time, I find it upsetting that Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is denying access for her voters. Because let's be honest, folks, you can't win a race with just one party. You're not going to win in almost anywhere in the nation just by only getting one party's votes. If all the Republicans vote for one thing, almost anywhere in the nation, you're not going to win. Same thing for Democrats. If you have only Democrats, even in New York State, one of the bluest of blue states, if you have only Democratic votes, you're probably not going to win most races. You're going to need to have independents. You're going to have to need Republicans to vote with you. Otherwise, you will lose. That's just true. The Democratic and Republican parties make up about 30% of the population each. So 30% of the population of America goes with Republicans, 30% go with Democrats. The rest of America, the other 40%, are independents. You don't win races with just 30%. You need more than that. So most people would want to have an opportunity to spread their word. You need to talk to the other side and to let them know and to give them the argument of whether or not you're valuable. And instead, Ocasio-Cortez decides that not only is she going to not have that conversation, she's going to get an excuse that is going to even further isolate her from anyone else that she could speak to and make them even less willing to have to consider her in a vote. You know, that's freedom of speech. It's also denial of freedom of speech. It's denying individuals information as well. And I see that, and I understand. And Shapiro goes into how this is, kind of sad for her, and he was looking forward to it. And why wouldn't he want to do this? This is not a verbal assault to say, let's have a conversation. Well, I've had that same thing happen to me, I have to tell you, with Anthony Brindisi over a year ago, more than 14 months ago. I asked Anthony Brindisi to come on to this program to be able to have a conversation with me. The same way that he's had conversations with me when I've spoken to him about reporting that I've done on, in particular, the drone testing site up in the Rome, Utica area at the Griffiths International Airport. And he's spoken with me as a reporter on that when I'm reporting on that. Just like I've also spoken to County Executive Jason Gunnar, who's a Democrat, or Assemblywoman Donna Lapardo, who's a Democrat. And I've talked to a lot of Democrats who are candidates and or elected officials, and I have a conversation with them. Not because I'm looking to attack them, even if I don't agree with them. I don't agree with Assemblywoman Donna Lapardo's position on her red flag legislation. I don't attack her because of that when I'm having a conversation. I ask her, why did she vote that way? What's the information I didn't get that she had that made her vote for it? I asked the same thing of Clifford Crouch, an assemblyman who's a Republican. I don't agree with his vote on the red flag laws. I asked him the same thing. I spoke with Jason Garnar. I'm not in favor of all the things that he's done as county executive. Doesn't mean that I'm going to suddenly go off and get crazy on it. I'm going to have a conversation. That's what we can do in this nation. That's what we're not seeing. That's what we're seeing denied us when we see Facebook remove people wholesale just because they don't like them. When we have news broadcasters who are denying people information or allowing people to make unfounded allegations, that's the problem. The fact that Anthony Brindisi is not appearing on this program to let others know, and some of them would be Republicans, conservatives, and independents, to know why he stands by some of the things he stands by, I lose no sleep over that. It doesn't change the fact that I'm going to continue to follow what he's doing, to follow what he's saying, and to let people know about what I believe are flip-flops based on his actual words. But It would be nice for him to come out and tell other people. Maybe he convinces them, maybe he doesn't. But you know what? He can't convince anybody if he won't speak with them. And it definitely makes me more nervous when I listen to a politician who won't answer a question. That makes me a lot more less likely to vote for them if they won't answer a question rather than when they come on and they say whatever their answer is. But that's a choice. That's a choice. But it's all about freedom. In every case we're talking about, whether it's Antifa attacking people at breakfast, whether it's Alex Jones or free speech on the internet, whether it's about people making unfounded allegations and allowing it to stand, because all of it ties together on someone likes it or someone doesn't like it. And you know what? Freedom is not about whether someone else likes it or not. Not when it comes to speech and communication. That's not what's being protected. The First Amendment doesn't allow you to protect what you like. It's there to protect what you don't like. And I hope that's come across in this conversation. I know it's been a little disjointed, but I hope that it comes across that that's what our First Amendment is about. It's about hearing the ideas, that we should be inviting these ideas and not finding more and more ways to isolate people, to categorize people, and to shut people off, and to allow misinformation and disinformation to go to replace them and to silence people because someone doesn't like it. That is bad. And that is a problem. And we're seeing it more and more. And I would definitely tell you, be concerned. And don't take my word for it. You don't have to agree with me. Don't take my word for it. Check it out for yourself. Look up this information and make your own decision about it. But I truly believe it is a troubling trend. And it's something that we should talk more about. But I wanted to go all into that. And of course, I'll be talking more about President Trump coming up to Utica for a fundraiser. And I'll be covering that in the next couple of days. I should be on doing a Facebook Live tomorrow. And hopefully you'll be able to listen in on that. But it's a lot of conversation today. Hopefully it was interesting. If it wasn't, let me know. I'll try to improve. But I do thank you for taking the time to be with me here today. I'm going to let you guys go. And I hope that everyone has a great day. And I look forward to speaking with you again very, very soon.
I say, lady, I'm feeling like we ain't got no damn patience. Excuses why we cannot do this face to face, and then we cry, wonder why we ain't on the same damn page. If there's one thing I know, it's that this world keeps turning. No one seems concerned. Whoa, that this world keeps turning. That's one thing I learned. Cause mama don't sleep at night since the sun done up and down. Ain't no brother's keeper. And no one looking out for the sisters either. And these families ain't no families. And no one giving second chances. I don't understand why. It seems like this world keeps turning. No one seems concerned. Yeah. Lately I'm feeling like you don't see me the same way. Excuses, but it's written on your face. And then we fight another night. This time we've been wasting. No, I don't understand why we could have it all, throw it all away. Just cause everything don't go our way. Why? Just take a look outside, people losing lives. I'm just trying to see this world is much bigger than you and I. Lady, I'm feeling like we could make this all okay. No, No excuses, girl, we need to find a way and take our time, do this right before this all fades away. Cause if there's one thing I learned, it's that this world keeps turning. If there's one thing I learned, it's that this world keeps turning. No one seems concerned. It's that this world keeps turning. No one seems concerned. It's that this world keeps turning. No one seems concerned.